and gentlemen, welcome to Questlove Supreme Duo Style. I like this season. We're doing combinations of solos, duos, trios.
Ahmir, perfect combination.
Yes, is this our first duo?
It's been a while. We did it like a couple times, but it's been a while.
We haven't done a duo yet. I got that. So today, special episode of Questlove Supreme. Today we are welcoming a Grammy Award-winning legendary singer, songwriter, author, television producer, actor. To say that he comes from a musical dynasty that rivals no one else, an influential musical dynasty, is really understating it. It can't be emphasized enough how powerful, I come from the hip hop generation. Yeah, when we see the W, we think of Wu-Tang, but there's a certain generation that when they think of musical dynasties with the letter W, only one name that comes to mind, and that is our guest is part of that musical dynasty. Of course, in addition to his bloodline and his siblings singing, his entire family singing, our guest has worked with so many greats today. Name them: Stevie Wonder, Eric Clapton, and Anita Baker, Detroit's own Anita Baker, David Foster. And I definitely want to get into his friendship and creativity with the one and only Whitney Houston. And right now he has a new single, Father in Heaven, with saxophonist Gerald Albright. We are delighted to have brother BeBe Winans on Questlove Supreme. Welcome,
sir. Thank you, sir.
How you doing?
Yes.
I'm doing.
Or should I say what up, though?
Both, I will say too. I'm doing great. I really am.
Great. Do you still reside in Detroit, or where do you live now?
No, I moved to Nashville, Tennessee 40 years ago. So
With everybody, 40
years ago. You know, when you can say 40 and you got a whole lot of years after that, you're old.
See, you know what I do to stay young? I would have said 4 decades ago. I try to compress it. You can say two score ago if if you're talking to history buffs, 2 scores ago.
Yeah. Yeah. But so I moved down here 40 years ago, and then the girls came tumbling after, which is CeCe, Angie, and Debbie, my 3 sisters. So all of us live here in Nashville in our families, and so
y'all are the pioneers, because all of a sudden everybody I mean, we knew that the country thing was happening, but when it came to the Black country and the Black scene, like Nashville's popping.
So besides Jill, who else is in Nashville?
You know, a lot of people have moved from the industry. That you have Reese Witherspoon, you have Nicole Kidman. I'm hearing now Beyonce's coming through this way.
Yeah. Taj from SWV and Eddie George, like they down
George and everything. So Nashville has changed tremendously. But even when I moved here, I mean, if you didn't know Nashville, you would think country. But the reason why I moved is because it was such a great haven for writing. And
you had to say music, not even country, but music
in general, gospel, inspirational, R&B. You had it all here, the writers. So that's why I moved. And my family was angry at me when I moved. Angry. I mean, to the point where you can't do that. I was like, whoa, I'm 26.
Was it about leaving Detroit or going to Nashville?
Leaving Detroit. You know, my family, very close-knit family, and me being the baby boy, I had 6 older brothers, and so they thought they were my fathers too, and so you know how all that works out.
First of all, how many Winans are there, siblings-wise?
Thank you, Ahmir, for asking.
I can say that either way. There's a lot of them. Or I can say 10. It was 10, 7 boys straight my mom and dad had. I'm the last boy, and then 3 girls after me. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm not even going to get into the nephews and everything.
Oh, when you add it all up, you know, we go to a certain city.
Family reunions are a nightmare.
Every other Thanksgiving. And so
God,
the last one we had like 4 108 people
Wait, and for Thanksgiving?
for Thanksgiving.
Wait, how do y'all even decide that? Do y'all just draw straws, like flip a
Oh,
coin?
no. There's a certain, my baby sister is the one that's actually in charge. And so we rent 5 homes, and not only Thanksgiving, but that whole week. So after Thanksgiving is over that week, you don't want to see no more Winans for a good 2 years.
So is Thanksgiving the family reunion?
Yeah.
Yo, BeBe, do you know how many Winans? Do you know how many Winans are on record?
Well, you have, when my brothers started off, it was the 4 brothers, the Winans.
Right.
Then you had me and CeCe.
Right.
My brother Daniel, who was a solo artist. You have my 2 sisters, Angie and Debbie, who are so artists. And then after years down the road, then my mom and dad recorded. So they met. My mom and dad met in a group called the Lemon Gospel Corps. That's how they met. My father was an only child, and my mother only had 1 sister. And so they met, and then their sister-in-law, Vicky, recorded. So within the family, I'll tell you this, there's about 45 Grammy Awards. There is about 20 plus recordings out there of my family members
with their names.
Wow. It's a Jackson's Winan battle.
Oh no, the Winans won.
Oh, okay. Damn.
I mean, at least in the pop world, like, Silvers were allowed to exist and da-da-da-da. Like, I think to most people, the Winans are the only dynasty that matters in gospel, even though I'm certain that there are other
Hawkins family.
Yes. The Clark sisters. Yes.
And so we grew up together. We being me and us and the Clark sisters, same high school, Fred Hammond, all of them. And so we've always been a great big family, and understood the doors that they open, the doors that we open with for other people, for each other. And so, we've always learned to celebrate each other.
Right.
In everything that has happened for all of us,
I was going to say that it was really important for me to have you on here because you and your sister CeCe specifically were responsible for like a paradigm shift in the Thompson household in West Philadelphia. So, and I've explained this on the show a lot that that there was kind of a period where in 78, 79, something kind of happened. Like, I basically came home one day and like there was this a new regime, and my dad was like, "We're all born again." Wait, huh? Wait, what happened? And this is all I know. So something happened in 79, and I kind of feel like the first domino that fell, because my father was in the music business as well. And the first domino that fell was there was a moment where, and Donna Summer explains this in her documentary, where it was like 78, 79. And this is when she was literally on top of the world in terms of her career and all that stuff. But of course, there's an emptiness inside of her. And I believe she might have been contemplating suicide or whatever. And whatever the situation was, she had this revelation and she became born again. And she shared the story on either the 700 Club or the PTL Club. I believe it was the 700 Club, but it's Pat Robertson.
Right.
So because of terrestrial television and not having access to cable, my dad would just leave the channel on, I guess either PTL or 700 Club would just buy blocks.
Right.
4-hour blocks, 5-hour blocks on certain UHF stations. And my dad would just constantly keep it running. And so around 81, something really touched my dad in the morning, whatever. And he ordered something, call this 1-800 number to get your prayer package or whatever. And inside of that prayer package thing was a 45. And the 45 was
Lord lift us up.
not exactly a cover of Joe Cocker and Jennifer Warren's Love Lifts Us Up Where We Belong from Officer and a Gentleman, but a gospel version of it.
Oh,
Wow.
And
man,
my dad played it.
I only remember that version.
you are wearing me out right this moment.
This is both of them, Ahmir. This is
Dude, like, yeah. So this will explain all the Prince punishments and all those things, because I didn't get the memo. I didn't get the memo that we are now born again and what that entails. Because before 1979, I would say my parents were relatively hip. They were 60s revolutionaries.
Yeah.
You were afros, and my mom, they had a sprawling record collection of 4,000 records. They were hip. And then something happened in 1980, 81. They became born again. And this was happening all, and I think that when you are like in the revolutionary 60s and the hedonistic 70s, then the 80s were sort of seen as an atonement period for some.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And man, when he got that 45, he played it so much.
That's the only song that was on there.
It was a 45.
It was a 45.
But it's what made
Wow.
them stars. And then, so if anything, I think for a lot of people, they came to your brothers first.
Mm-hmm.
No. For my household, BeBe and CeCe were first.
Yeah, my household, BeBe and CeCe was first.
Right. And then it was like, wait, there's more? So suddenly, maybe a year later, I'm hearing this no song over and over again. I'm like, they got another song? It's like, no, there's and then just between 81 and 87, like Winans only, the entire clan. So I definitely got questions to ask. Because the thing is, I'm 12.
I don't know if to say thank you or I'm sorry.
Is that on iTunes?
You know what? Okay, so here's the deal.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm 12 and 13, and this happens with every 12 and 13-year-old. It's like,
it is.
Once your parents lay down the law, you see it as punishment. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, but look, I say it this way. I joke now that even I'm starting now to have fond memories of the pandemic. Like, oh man, it was fun, like living in the farm, taking long walks, not having to work. Like, of course, in 2020, it was like, oh God, the world's about to end. But now I'm starting to have like pandemic fond memories. So that said, when I now think of like my tweens and how heavy the Winans were inside of that family, all of your work, all of their work, now I can say, yeah, those were fond memories. So, well, one,
I'm not traumatized. No.
It wasn't trauma.
No,
well, the
so
traumatizing part, part was wanting to listen to rap music and secular music and trying to sneak it in the house and getting busted. But
oh yeah. And so the thing is, but I'm tickled. I could laugh for the rest of this interview. I understand. So you have to understand, being raised in the household I was raised in, my father laid down the law. There would be no other type of music in my household except gospel music.
You lived in Detroit, though.
In Detroit. I'm saying Motown, where
that gotta hurt.
Where one street ahead, Santa Barbara, to the left, Smokey Robinson lived. We used to rush to his house to shovel his snow because Smokey would give you like $25 instead of, and 3 blocks behind us lived Stevie Wonder. So we were, not only was it Motown, 4 more blocks down the street, a couple of the group from the Four Tops. So we had all this great music, and we could not listen to it in the house. So sometimes, we would take a song from that era, and then we would switch the words. And my father didn't know it was one of those songs.
Flashlight is like the light or something.
Exactly.
Well, wow. Okay, now I don't know the answer.
I know, right? Yeah.
What was your first musical memory in life?
Well, so growing up, seriously, in the household I grew up in, music was always a part of my life, whether that was in church or at school. We were in the school choir. So it was always a love of my whole entire family, not knowing it would be our career. But my father and mother saw the passion for music. And so they sacrificed. My father was a barber by trade. He worked in the car manufacturing and everything else between there, because he had to support 10 kids.
Were they part of what we would call what we call the Great Migration from down south, where blacks were escaping down south to go to the north? No.
My great grandfather, yes, from Mississippi.
Okay, so they came to Detroit to find industry and
yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Mom and dad definitely born and raised in Detroit. And so we, my father sacrificed, bought us a piano, and none of us went to school to learn how to play piano. We were self-taught. But we had a passion, so they really poured into us. So we sung all the time, not knowing it would be our career. Yet and still, we learned so much. My father used to tell us, before you are national, you got to be regional. Before you're regional, you got to be local.
Real.
And so we were taught to be faithful with our talent. So, whether it's 3 people in the audience, we sung like it was 2,000, and gave it our all. And then doors started opening here, doors started opening there. My music, me and CeCe, was totally different from my brothers because of my 4th grade teacher, Miss Bakker. I mean, I'll never forget this because it shifted me. I always wanted to write more, so always been more passionate of writing than singing. And so in the 4th grade, she said to the students, I have a poem I'm gonna read to you. And that was really the time to go to sleep. But she read The Wind. And when she read it, it captivated me. It said, why does the wind so want to be here in my little room with me? When he's all the world to blow about, and just because he keeps him out, he cannot wait a moment still, but frets upon my windowsill, and sometimes brings a noisy rain to help him better at the pain. Upon my door he comes and knocks, and he rattles and rattles at the locks. He lifts the latch and stirs the key, then waits a moment grievously. Tell me, why does the wind so want to be here in my little room with me? And I was like, thank you, Jesus. Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
That was profound to you. Okay.
Oh, it was profound. So when I wrote songs like Love Said Not So, I wanted to write it in a way that caused people to think, and so doing that, it separated me and CeCe from my brothers. And CeCe and I wasn't a duet until we went down to PTL and joined the PTL singers. And Jim Bakker came in the room and said, I heard a song on the radio from an officer and a gentleman, and I want, change a couple of words, and I want you, BeBe, and CeCe, y'all sing it together. That's how
Jim Bakker.
Wait, it was that instantaneous?
That's how we became a duet.
How does one start a gospel business where suddenly you're now making a living off it? Like, how does it start in your household?
Well, my father, our biggest fan, and he felt as if, you guys are talented enough to record. So he put his money into recording the first 45 for my brothers. And as that continued, that door opened another door, and before you know it, my brothers met Andre Crouch and the Disciples, who were our heroes, and he signed them. And the first
to Light Records,
to Light Records, yes.
Where were they located? Where was Light located?
In Los Angeles.
See, I thought it was a Detroit label. Okay.
And the first single that released in 1980 was Questionnaires. No, 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 no.
See,
And
I came in backwards, but so that first album did start the dynasty of the one. Okay.
yes.
We caught on to you and then went backwards.
Oh no. So me and CeCe the Questionnaires was out first, and then me and CeCe released that first single for PTL, Lord Lift Us Up, Where We Belong. And so we were on different tracks, probably a year or so in between the release of their song and the release of our song on PTL Records.
I'm still in shock that Jim Bakker's ear, in my mind, his ear don't hear y'all, but he did.
He did.
I'm still, yeah, I'm in shock of that.
So you have to understand. So me and CeCe, we had, before we came to PTL, we had a group, and it was called the Winans Part 2. And in that group was another brother, Daniel. At the time, Vicky was married to Marvin, and then another friend. And so after a couple of years, CeCe and I remember us looking at each other saying, "Do you feel what I feel?" And she was like, "I think so." So we had to go back home to Detroit and tell the rest of our group, this group no longer exists. Y'all got to go back and get.
How easy to do that?
That was so difficult.
Did people walk away upset? They were.
Oh yes, my father was angry because my father was like, "We got to stick together." And I said, "Daddy, we are, but me and CeCe."
Now, why did you choose CeCe and not? Well, first of all, okay, are you and CeCe respectively consecutive in age?
CeCe's right. CeCe's the first girl. I'm the baby.
She's the eldest girl. You're the youngest boy. Okay. So how do you guys even pair up? Like were you two just that close in age?
I tell you, so Ronald, my brother who passed away 20 years ago now, he put me, my brother Daniel, my brother Michael together with CeCe. We were the Christian version of Gladys Knight and the Pips.
Okay.
Elementary school, and they were in high school, Mumford High, which had a lot of great talent in that high school. And for their talent show, he made us go sing at their talent show. Okay. So we had that group, and then as time would have it, Michael would leave our group and go to their group, and they became the Winans. And so it was just, it kept evolving.
Yes.
Still, it was him and Tami that brought us together and caused us to be a duet.
I do know that at the time they had such a big sprawling empire that it didn't seem logical that you go to where, like, if I'm an actor, I'm gonna go to Hollywood. So at the time, was PTL was that North Carolina?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
That's right. That's where and
it was the place, like you just said. It was the place. If you wanted to be exposed on Christian television, it was PTL. It was much bigger than TBN and CBN and all those other places. So I met all those people, me and CeCe, because everybody came through PTL, even Hollywood. If an actor became a Christian, he came through PTL. It was the place to go.
And they were racially welcoming to everyone too.
Well, Jim and Tami was, but as time would go on, I would learn a lot how they were attacked because of me and CeCe. They broke ground in having these colored children.
Whoa, that was controversial?
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is Jim and Tami.
Death threats. And he hid us from those. So I'll jump over to I have a book, and I have out of the book is the musical that I wrote called Born for This, which looks like now 2025 spring it'll hit Broadway. But one of the things that I did, I went and sat with Jim who are still friends to this day, because they became like our parents. They really did, and they protected me and CeCe. And so I was sitting with him, and I told him, I said, Jim, me and my co-author, we took some, lead and said there was, some threats. And Jim looked at me and said, BeBe, there was many threats. I was like, what? He said people would call up, said they were coming up to shoot us and kill us, and how could they have these Black kids on the show and this and that. Oh, it was unbelievable, the hatred and the
I'm like, these are beautiful chocolate babies too. Like, what?
Oh, they was angry.
Mm-hmm.
And then after we did that duet, I mean, you thought you were tired of listening to the Quest. We were tired of singing that song. It was every day.
I was going to say, how long did it consume you before, like, you eventually had more songs in your canon that you could,
Yeah, I mean, we sang that song seriously every day for maybe every day, twice or three times a day for 2 years straight. And so because of that, we were asked to come out and sing various other places. And so that's when I had to say, CeCe, we gotta create some duets. And so taking songs that Amy Grant sang, taking songs that this one sang, and made them duets, and would go do that. And so, and that's when we realized, you know what? I think we're supposed to be a duet, and went and had that talk with the family.
Wow, that's okay.
Oh,
How did the kind of fallout of 87 affect you? And what pivot did you have to make once the PTL empire kind of came crumbling down? Is it over now, or is
there's other people in that space. So when we decided to leave, it was
okay
years before that happened, because CeCe was getting married, moving back to Detroit, and I thought, hey, we came together, we're gonna leave together. So it was the hardest meeting we had.
Okay.
Jim and Tami cried. It was over. We went to their home for dinner, and they cried, and we both cried. And then Jim said to us, he said, you guys are going to be huge stars. And we started laughing. He said, I'm not playing. You're going to be stars. Talked about, and we're sorry for you to let you go, but we understand, right? So we went back home to Detroit, and then we got a call saying a year or so later, Jim and Tami want you to come back, and you can have the freedom you need, because we have recorded and things started moving in our career as a duet, and you can have all the time you need, but they just want you to come back. And we agreed to it. And then all of a sudden, get a phone call, said Jim said no, and no explanation. So it was like, this is confusing. I mean,
you didn't know what was happening. Okay.
I know what is happening. And so when everything tumbled and everything came out, we realized that he was protecting us. He did not want us to come back and be caught up in the story and the thing that was happening. So he was still loving on us, still protecting us, as he did when we were there the whole time. I ran into a card as I was cleaning different drawers in my home, and there was a card from Tami Faye Bakker that she wrote to my son, BeBe Winans, soar. Mom's gonna miss you. And so it was very moving, but they saw what was going to happen in our lives before we saw
it. Did you ever watch the biopic that
Yes.
Did you feel like it was depicted fairly, or?
I thought some things were predicted fairly. Tami Faye was one of the sweetest persons you ever want to meet. I mean, when she passed away, it was a very hard thing for us. And Jim has always been a supporter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they were dear to us. And
Okay.
still to this day, Jim, don't agree with everything he says, but you know, that's life. At the same time, when I opened the musical Born for This, the regional run in Atlanta, Jim came to that. So I had Jim on my right side and I had my mom on my other side. So
Wow.
there's a scene, there's a scene in it where I was dating one of the singers, and actually Tami, and this was the racism that existed. Tami was upset, as well as others, because she was a tall blonde, and she said, you can't date BeBe because it's not right. And so we ignored it and they fired her. So while this scene is going on, Jim leaned in and said, I didn't know that happened. I'm so sorry. I said, Jim, that was 30 years ago. You don't even got to be.
Wow.
That's so interesting. The subtle racism of things.
Oh,
And
Like,
not
yet
so
still,
subtle.
and right, and
so
then yet she
subtle.
still loved you, but that's that's Southern white folks, I guess.
Exactly. But you're talking about something that's embedded in people,
Yeah,
you
you're
know,
right.
and it does take love and patience to cause them to see themselves.
When you're obviously not going back to PTL, was there ever trepidation or fear of like, what now? What do I do?
You know what? Never fear. I was always a big dreamer. And some people, so my father used to say, there's a thin line between confident and conceited. And some people may think you're conceited, but what you're going to be is very confident and believe in what you have, right? So I believed that CeCe and I would accomplish things that was even beyond our dreams. And so I went for it. So I went to Nashville, you know, with a friend and took meetings, and then brought CeCe in, and everybody was saying no. One person said, I don't even hear talent. I was like, whoa. I mean,
Wait, what?
that's what the record companies. And I looked at him, I said, okay, you mean you don't hear none? That was confusing to me.
Okay.
Me too.
But that's what he said. And then we kept going. So I never, ever thought this is not going to happen. Never thought that. Never. And so the last record company, which was Sparrow Records, said yes. And that started the serious step and shift in me and my sister's career. And the writing, again, we knew traditional church is not going to like this, and they get angry, but that was no fear, because every song I wrote, I had my mom listen to it. And if my mom gave me the thumb up, I was good. I was good. So that was the path, and never stopped.
So before I ask about your recording career, just in general, as a singer, as a songwriter, well, first of all, like to grow up in a secular music is contraband in a household environment. How are you even aware of what's out there if it's not allowed in the house? And did you guys follow the rules? Or was Stevie Wonder also like Richard Pryor status where you had to like sneak and listen to it?
Well, I mean, when you walked up the house, there's no way you couldn't, in Detroit, Michigan, there's no way you couldn't hear Four Tops and Stevie Wonder and all these other people. So no, and good music always caught my ear. So my favorite singer in the world was Donny Hathaway. Oh, if you wanted to make me smile, say, man, you sound like a little bit like Donny. What can I buy you?
Got it.
To me, he was the greatest singer of all times. He really was. So there were vocalists, there was writers that I kind of gravitated to. And when I wrote a song, I wanted the song to be kind of like this, that, it was just my imagination. Right. So it was like, oh, yeah. And so those were my heroes. Those were the kind of songs that I was gravitated to. So when I sat down and started writing stuff like, I'm lost without you, so don't ever go. Move mid-tempo, and lyric was the most important. That I said something that would cause people to be uplifted and to give life another try.
Now, here's the thing. When I first heard, and that's a good example, like with I'm Lost Without You. I mean, obviously, there was a period where someone in my school wanted to sing You Light Up My Life. And my music teacher had to say, like, that's a gospel song, right? They're like, no, it's, like we had no idea that You the Light of My Life was singing about God or whatever. And at some point, I always wondered if using, especially in an example of I'm Lost Without You, would you sort of ambiguously blur the lines of the pronoun? Because we often think in the gospel world that the you, and sometimes it works in the secular world. Like I think,
and love too, love.
Right. And I think in the secular world, like Philip Bailey once told me, like, it was some Earth, Wind, and Fire song. I think it was like I Had Enough. And I'm thinking like, oh, Philip Bailey's singing about I'm so tired of being on the road and I'm coming home to you, babe. And he was like, no, I was singing about I'm coming home to God or whatever. As a songwriter, would you say that you could catch more fish if your song is spiritual, but you don't know where it falls?
And so what I always say, and truthfully say that is, I wish I was that smart, and I wish I was thinking that way.
Oh.
I was right. This is my reality. I felt like I had the authorization to tell the world what God meant to me in every aspect of my life, in my love life, in my friendship life, in my family life, in my public life, in my private life. Every area of my life, I felt like I had the authority to write about. So Lost Without You was definitely all about me saying, Lord, if you leave me, I'm totally lost. I am really totally lost. Now let's jump into the song Down the Road. Me and CeCe are in Chicago doing a concert. It was a one of those musical amphitheaters, and not knowing, the night before, Janet Jackson was in Chicago in concert. She saw our names, and the next thing I know, I'm sitting there because Fred Hammond was on the same show, and I'm listening to Fred Hammond, and somebody said, "Excuse me, Mr. Winans, you have to come to your room." It's like, no, I'm watching, Fred. No, you have to. I'm watching Fred. Mr. Winans, Janet Jackson is on the way to your room. Like, Janet, if you're nasty, Janet.
I love that's your reference. I love
my room. And so we go back to the room, CeCe and myself, and up drives this 4-car Convoy, and Janet gets out and comes to the room, and the first thing she wants to ask is, tell me about Lost Without You. It's my favorite song. What are you talking about? And
really?
Yes. I never forget it. And so that was one of those moments that I realized people interpret our songs the way they hear it. And that was okay with me. I always feel and always felt then and now, where there are people, whether it's in the club, where it's on the street, in the church, in a different venue, where there's people, there's ministry. And so I'm always excited when my song goes beyond the 4 walls.
Wait, can I ask you both a question? Because oftentimes on this show, I would think that something is created and new, but maybe sometimes I'm wrong, so I don't want to assume this. But for me and my generation, you were that person who blurred the line. And yes, you initially, maybe you didn't think you were talking about God, but then when you realized you were talking about God, then it was like, oh, this is even better. I'm good, So why did this feel so special? Was there anybody else like Ahmir before who really could grasp that like fine line? Like,
Yeah.
who is
I mean, so you had the Hawkins family. So Edwin
right?
Hawkins, when he did Oh Happy Day, that thing went cross,
Yeah.
But he still said Jesus Christ though.
yes, but it went to the pop charts, it went to
I got you.
charts.
Okay.
Music has a way, even before the lyric, of how it's produced and the rhythm of it, that will cross the lines. And so you take that rhythm that we were taught, you take also the message, which is important. And I remember after every album we recorded, I would sit it on the dresser and I would say, Lord, I did my part. Can't wait to see what you're going to do with it. And so to get a phone call from someone in another country saying, I was on the dance floor dancing to Addictive Love, and it was my song. And then I realized, oh, wow. Oh, that's a Christian song. Oh,
is it okay?
It's okay.
Is it okay?
It's okay. And it changed their lives. And so I'm always excited when things like that happen.
But BeBe, did you hear what you just said? Like, I'm just saying, y'all know that our grandmothers was like, "What you don't you be dancing to that gospel music?" So
that's what they told us. But to me, it makes no sense, because when I read in the Old Testament, when David danced out of his clothes because of what God had did. So, I was free when I went to PTL, to Charlotte, North Carolina. I knew there was something happening inside of me that brought down the walls, man-made rooms. And I really found out more personally who God was. So you have to understand, my first movie was E.T. And I remember I had to go see it twice, because the first time I saw it, I couldn't even enjoy it, because I heard thunder. You're gonna die.
Yeah.
I got it. In making the first album in '84, was it somewhat by design that to not make it too funky, to not make it too slow, as to not turn off the older gospel authority? Whereas come '87, you guys are like, hey, here's break beats, here's a drum machine, I'm gonna make it sound like today's music. Like, were you ever caught in the controversy of don't make the sound too?
No, never. And so the answer to the question is just, so it takes me back to PTL. So Howard McQuarrie was the musical director, and he's the one that knew my brothers and asked if we could come audition. So he has a meeting, and the last minute, Jim Bakker called another meeting, and Howard comes to me and said, BeBe, you got to do me a favor. You got to go in and meet with this guy. His name is Keith Thomas. He's from Nashville. He's coming up to meet with me, but I can't meet him because of the thing. And I looked at Howard and said, I'm not going to meet somebody who's coming to me. I mean, that makes no sense. I would disappoint him as well. And so he said, BeBe, just go in and meet him. Not knowing, Quest, that I was going to meet the person that I would collaborate my whole career with.
Right.
So when he started playing on the piano, it did something inside of me. It was like meeting, your spouse. It was like, wow. I mean, I fell in love with his chords. So before the meeting was over, I told him, let's swap numbers, because I'm gonna come to Nashville and I'm gonna sit with you. And there you have it. So it wasn't a thing of being worried about what people were going to say or how to navigate the craziness between traditional and contemporary. I just found my partner and we just started creating. And so I owe you me. It was like,
yeah, I was gonna say I owe you me was like,
that was the first one.
Right. Keith Thomas, to our listeners don't know, he has so many numbers on the board. you probably know him best for, I think he wrote Save the Best for Last
For Vanessa
for
Williams.
Vanessa Williams.
Produced that one, yeah.
Did he have something to do with I'm forgetting, there's another song that he did.
Well, he did Amy Grant's Baby, Baby.
Yeah, he did.
So Keith was not being utilized much at all in the Christian world until he produced me and CeCe, and then people started finding out. But understand, after the first album, me and CeCe were now signed to Capitol Records, and so we went out to California, had the meeting with the CEO and all these big executives, and then the COO said, "Okay, you guys are going to work with different producers." And me and CeCe sitting there, and I said, "No, we already have our producer, Keith Thomas." He said, "Oh, you're big time now. You're in the big league, so you got to work with big producers." And so, long story short, I realized, oh, y'all not asking us, y'all telling us.
Right.
And so I looked at him, happy to be on Capitol Records, and I told him, but if we can't use our producer, then I will grab my sister's hand and we will walk out and y'all have a good day. And he said, well, you would leave Capitol Records? And I looked at him and I meant this. I said, don't get it wrong. Glad to be here, but you do not hold my future. God holds my future. So we will walk out of here. And that man said, well, I guess keep producing. They didn't know he was white. They didn't know anything about him, but he brought us to the party. The reason why we have this meeting is because of Keith Thomas and the collaboratory chemistry that he and I had. And so I'm glad I did it because of that, you have the slew of things that me and my sister accomplished.
So on that first album, and I remember the credits, you pretty much are utilizing your siblings as auxiliary voices.
Yes.
If you wanted to work with another group of background singers, would your family feel, air quote, feel some sort of way? Like, do you?
No, we were always. Now, the only thing about us using each other is that we were free.
Yeah, I was going to say, and how's that work?
You ain't have to pay nothing.
Oh,
why
no.
not?
Why would I pay CeCe? Why would CeCe pay me? That made no sense. So if you wanted to, and that was just how we were.
Well, not CeCe, but everybody else. So that means that you got some other folks singing the backgrounds too, right?
Oh yeah, my sister
and the family,
Debbie, and various other people. So if we used other people, which we did, you had to pay fees, and so whenever we wanted to, if the budget ran out, hey Marvin, how you doing? This
dang.
I need y'all to set up a recording session and come and help us. And to this day, I turned 60. I can't believe it. It's 2 years now. I'll be 62. And so when I always wanted my 60th birthday in London. So I decided at the last minute to have a concert in London. So I called my brother and I said, hey, you going to come to London for me? He said, I guess I'm not getting paid. I said, why would we start paying each other now?
Wait, has there, forgive my ignorance in asking this, because I still feel like I'm relatively well adept in my Winans-ology. But has there ever been in the prime, and when I mean the prime days, the first 10 years of the dynasty, has there ever been a collective
2300 Jackson Street?
Yeah, a collective Winans album project?
No.
Why?
Only had we did 2 Winan family tours, international and national tours, and we had the most fun. It was absolutely incredible. But after we came off of those tours, it was like, I don't never have to see another one again. And this is the reason. So as the youngest
boy.
Are
you the agitator?
No, I'm the one that does the work. And so
Yeah.
I'm creative in the place of, and I enjoy it in putting this song with this song and this and that and that. And so I'm creating the whole thing, giving permission to do it. And then at the last minute, the older brothers want to come in and say, I ain't doing that song. Yes, you are. So it'd be back forth. And you told me to put this together, but I didn't tell you that song. Were you singing that song? I mean, up until, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Who is the alpha whining? Who is dad when dad is not there?
Well, Marvin thinks he's dad.
I thought it was Marvin.
Dad was alive. He used to tell my mother, I'm your father. I'm not lying. You call him up and he'll say the same thing. So, but he was, and still, he was the songwriter of the Winans. And we all, used to always say he's the greatest singer in the Winans family. At the same time, he is not the one that does the footwork,
Right.
And so I'm that one. And then, you always meet, okay, here's that big brother and little brother,
Right.
But BeBe, you got like nephews and nieces and stuff now. I'm curious if there's a baby BeBe coming up in the family who now is like, well, BeBe, remember you used to be that person, but now I know my finger is on the pulse, I
wish we had that. Now we do have great writers. CeCe's son is really a great writer, Alvin Jr. and producer. He's produced some things on her album. And then Juan is one who write. So we have some great writers, but these days it's hard. I don't know if it's just this generation. They don't want to do no work. They just want to walk in and just, hey. No, it don't work like that. You gotta.
So here's the thing though, and I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
And this
come on, Ahmir. Yeah, defend the people.
No. But here's the thing, and this might be a controversial hot take. I kind of believe that everything that we've been generationally taught, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and so on and so forth, I now believe that we might have to let maybe 80% of everything we were ever taught.
Whoa, that's a lot.
I know. But here's the thing, though. And the number one thing that I'm trying to get rid of, even for a person that doesn't know me, I have this James Brown hardest working man. And it's really my fault. It's my fault. Oh, you doing movies one day, you doing records the next day, then you writing a book this day, because I was kind of raised in that environment that
work hard.
Yeah, work hard. And then the pandemic came, and the first time in my life, and I don't know if you've had this same experience, but the first time in my life for 8 months, I did nothing. After 6 months, I was like, wait a minute. Let me find out the key to life is not whatever we complain about the younger generation.
Right. No. So
I'll say I'm now 60-40, where I now agree with the younger generation.
Smarter, not harder.
But my approach is this. My answer to that is this. And this is my philosophy.
Okay. 2
+ 2 will always equals 4. Now, how you get there, in this year, 20 years ago and 40 years down the road, 2 + 2 will always equal 4. So,
unless you're Terrence Howard, but I won't even start that. Look, I want to get involved in the Terrence Howard controversy.
Is always going to equal 4. So, no, I've always believed that I didn't have to follow the path that my father followed to be successful. I didn't have to follow my brother's pattern road that they traveled to be successful. So, but you do have to have a dream. You do have to have the understanding that, You have to work towards that dream. I'll put it like this, and I'll end it like this. A friend of mine, a good friend named Ren Brown, he said, Christians don't want a miracle. They want magic. They want to say, oh, I want this house. Bam, that house is there. He said, because a miracle has to have your participation. And so a lot of times this generation don't want to participate in what's there. They just want to sit around and wait for magic.
Ew, no, wow. Okay, now you make me feel bad because here's the thing though.
Why you feel bad?
Okay, miracle versus magic. And you phrased it perfectly. With miracles, you have to be actively involved, an expert in your field, know what you're doing. With magic, you do nothing and it happens.
It just happens. Yeah.
So here's the thing though. I'm right now at a place in my life where between the Christian side of me versus the metaphysical side of me. And, you know, a lot of it also has to do with me studying my African ancestry.
Right.
About to say, you are like 20% Christian. You better stop.
Well, no, but dude, like
we all are. I mean, at some point,
I was raised.
No shade.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere. Well, and understanding. Look, my father said, and maybe I answered this way. My father used to tell us, "Y'all not the greatest singers in the world. Don't you sit around and think you're the greatest singers in the world, but you're going to be confident. You're going to be the most confident singers in the world." Okay, so that's what he said when I was younger. I had to perfect my vocal ability. Like I have a son, he was 16 or 17, 18 at the time, and he said, "Dad, we're going to do a duet together." I said, "You and me?"
Yeah.
I said, no, we not. You're not waking up today and all of a sudden you do a duet with me. And the reason is not that it has nothing to do with my love towards you. It has nothing to do with your desire, even if you have a desire.
He ain't worked for it yet. He
I get it.
You can't sing.
Oh, wow. Whoa. Time out. Are you trying to tell me that somewhere on this earth there's a human being that has the last name of Winans?
There are many.
And doesn't know how to sing?
There are many.
Really?
My
what is that
brother,
like?
My oldest brother, David, he can't sing to save his life in our ears.
That has to be psychological. I refuse.
No, BeBe said in his ears. No. BeBe said in
everybody else's
ears.
ear. In his ear, he think he can. So when we went out on those 2 runs of the Winans family, he was with us, but the sound people knew, don't turn his mic on.
Just his monitors, his in-ears.
But in the monitors or nothing.
You're horrible.
That's true. Horrible one.
To close my statement.
Oh yeah, because you were talking about something else.
To close my statement.
Yeah.
Okay, only because the period of me finding out about my African ancestry and the pandemic forced me in a place where the most that ever happened in my life out of nowhere happened because I sat around and just stayed silent.
Yes.
And then it happened, of which the conflict to me is like, well, are you going to dismiss 40 years of the insane amount of hours that you studied your skill and your practice and all those things? No, I can't. And I believe that the more that my dad had a rule in the house, like you've heard the idiom, practice makes perfect. My dad's idiom was perfect practice makes perfect. He was Joe Jackson on steroids. So the thing is, I can't dismiss the preparation and the over preparation of having a skill.
Right.
Makes you better. But I gotta admit that this generation might be on something. I'm only 3 years into this. And trust me, as an overworker, who is on your side of the fence with miracles versus magic, I decided to just backslide a little bit from miracles and to see
if the magic is there.
If I do nothing, will magic occur?
But let me answer that this way, because faith is not magic, but faith is something you don't see or you can earn.
True.
Okay.
I agree.
So, but works is important to make faith come to existence. All right. So I've always seen myself being what God had prepared for me. I didn't see it, but I believed it. So one of the things that I've always taught my children and the upcoming artists and everything, you have to see yourself as successful. You have to see yourself right now. You have to know your worth right now. So like, again, I always go back to my father. I mean, he really was my hero. But he used to always say, before my children leave my house, you're going to know who you are. So when you go onto the world and they tell you who you are, you won't believe it because you already know it. Mm-hmm. So it's this generation, what I enjoy is that they have a confidence that we didn't have back then, and they have some of the tools that we didn't have back then.
But don't forget they got it on our backs too.
2 + 2 still equals 4.
Equals 4, yeah.
It's
and everything, and every reason that they have to rest today is because of our work.
Yes.
Like, let's not forget that. Like, yes, baby, you can rest today because we worked yesterday. Because we worked the day before that. For you to rest.
And the word of appreciation of that work.
Yes. Look, okay, so yes, gratitude is important. Absolutely
so important. I mean, because again, you know, some of my heroes have passed away this year, and I've gone to their celebrations because I had to be there to say thank you. Said it before they passed away because they opened doors. They did a lot of the knocking down of the doors and everything. Yes. And so as CeCe and I have, you know, I knew then this door that we're knocking down is not just for us, but it's for the Kirk Franklins, it's for the Mary Marys, it's for all the other people that are following us. And they could go through the door because they did the work. I'll say
that's perfect. Perfect analogy.
I don't know if you remember, we did I used to do all the, and I still do some, all the music behind the scenes for Oprah Winfrey, right? And so we did the Legends Ball. And I was over the music for the Legends Ball. And so Oprah decided at the last minute to put this girl in the lineup. And I called her and said, "What are you doing? This woman is not ready for it." She had a nice voice, actually a wonderful voice. She reminded you of Aretha Franklin in her presentation. And so long story short, hey, you got the last word. She was in the lineup. But I knew.
Was she ready?
Ready. And she wasn't ready, not because of the talent she had inside of her. She wasn't ready to stand up in front of
that people.
Aretha Franklin,
yes,
Knight, and Barbara Streisand, and all these other people. She started tanking like the Titanic, and at that moment, I can't say that I was very merciful.
You came and saved her.
So I saw Oprah get up, and she ran around to the stage where I was, and she was like, psst, and I wouldn't even turn around. And they said, "BeBe."
Oh, come on.
Oh, I'm telling you the truth. And she said, "BeBe,
tell the truth.
Oprah want to talk to you." And I looked around. She was waiting, come in quickly, because this woman is dying. This whole thing is going down hard. And so I went over, and she said, "You got to do something." And I looked at her. I said, Oh, you want me to do something about the person that you put in the program that I told you? Oh, I was enjoying the moment. So we saved the day, because singing to legends, you had to have legends. And that was the Hawkins family that tore the place down.
Did they go after her? Please don't tell me they went after her.
Huh?
They went after her? After the young lady, they went after her?
No. That
Okay.
was the group that I had lined up, and I had everything else lined up. He just stuck her in, and it almost took the whole thing down.
I mean, look, to Oprah's credit, and you gotta remember that, you know, Oprah came to national prominence as that woman in The Color Purple. So I can see whether, you know, I can see that, and I've seen a few times where Oprah might want to highlight someone that's untested, true, and see if you're ready for it. And this was
fine, but not at this situation.
Not this event.
But I repeat again, Mr. Winans, I repeat again, it's a testament to your relationship with Lady O that has been lasted this long, because at the level she's at, everybody don't have that level of honesty with her. And so I just think it's beautiful that y'all still have this relationship and it works.
Yeah, I mean, our relationship goes back to the first 6 months of her show. I was called and I wrote a commercial for the show called I Found a Friend in Oprah. So our relationship goes way back.
Yeah.
And always, we agreed that we had the relationship where we would tell each other the truth, no matter what. And
I love that.
She has been a great friend, and vice versa, you know. But at the same time,
don't get no ideas like, yeah, you still better lie to me. Anyway,
no, I am that. I already know I'm that friend. I have taken the burden. I have taken the burden, and
stop.
I love you.
But in that is so funny.
It's true though.
But in that, this is why
she wanted you to tell the story.
No.
This 30 years right here, BeBe. Okay, this 30.
But I tell you the truth, one of the things that I love more than anything is friendship. And if you really have a friend, that friend is going to tell you the truth, you know, especially in this industry where you're surrounded by people who act like they're your friend.
Yeah.
And that's Questlove Supreme. Thank you very much, BeBe.
No. I'm gonna move on. I ain't gonna stick on there, but I was gonna say it. So it also shows that I'm guessing that part of the result of this friendship is our ability to see Greenleaf.
Speaking of, I have to shout out. Speaking of Greenleaf, I became really good friends with Meryl on the show, and Meryl is part of my storied. So, you know, the other thing that I've done that's different after the pandemic is making time for fun and joy, because people are like, you're too serious, you work too much, you don't take time out for yourself. And so I've started like a series of game nights, and I didn't get the memo at how devious and serious Merle is as Merle's also a part of my Wordle group. You know, we played the New York Times Wordle, and there's 8 of us, and you know, it's a vast array of people. There's actors, actresses, news people, and literally I'm keeping an eye on our scoreboard, and Merle is an overachiever in gaming right now. So I'm giving a shout out to Merle.
So if you play Scrabble and you have feelings, don't play with any of my family members.
Wow.
Really. Oh, we come at you. Oh, we come at you with sarcasm. You put a word up there that we're not familiar with and we know it's not a word. Now you lose that. We start creating sentences with that word, and it breaks your heart. So, you don't want to not Scrabble.
Wait, is there profanity at a Winans game night? Is there profanity?
No, and because it was just not in us, we weren't raised. So
I was going to ask, are you guys allowed to argue?
Oh yeah, I mean, but if we said when we was coming up, if we said the word "shut up," that would just stir my mom and dad. It was like, don't you say that?
Oh yeah.
So, but we became very good friends with Whitney, right? And she became like family. And one day, CeCe and I were over, and she was, you know, we're talking about the first major.
She's Whitney.
She's Whitney. But she said, I got to ask y'all a question. It was like, what? She said, I've been wanting to ask y'all this all the time. Okay, what? She said, y'all don't curse. Why don't y'all?
What do y'all do? What do you put in the place of them words?
It was so funny.
Sam Pete.
Because it never dawned on us that you're checking out every word that we're
Is she feeling like some type of way? Is she cut? Y'all not. Yeah.
But every now and then she stopped doing it altogether. And my answer was, Whitney, it's not in me. It's just not in me. There's more vocabulary. You will know how I feel by the words I say, but they won't be loaded with words that maybe you're familiar with. And so it's important, I think, more than ever, that we teach our children how to stand up, how to argue, how to get it. Anger and hatred does not benefit anger and hatred. I can say some words to you because the scriptures even tell us that let your words be filled with honey and sweetness. You can kill them with honey and sweetness more so than the same hatred that they use. So I've always been a fan of that. So I could tell you more in that, but that's for another.
Well, one, I wanted to know what compelled you to write a book about Whitney, but just basically talk about the friendship and the fact that I think since your second album, she's basically the auxiliary Winans family member.
Oh, she.
I'm actually, damn.
About to make an announcement you ain't supposed to make. What?
Right. I was going to say, I'm working on a project right now that has you guys singing when she was doing promo for The Preacher's Wife,
right?
Oh,
and needed a choir. I've seen.
Are you allowed to say this? Or are we editing all of this out?
No, I can say this much. I can't say.
Okay.
I didn't make. Actually, I guess the announcement will come out in July. But anyway, the whole point was, I do know that you guys have rolled tight with her, since the beginning of her career.
Incredible relationship. And it just happened. It just happened. There was nothing we did, nothing she did that caused us just to be like that. And I remember her saying, for the rest of my life, you guys have to be in my life, and no major choices I will make without sitting with you all. And we're like,
what?
Okay,
that last part was heavy.
But is the bonding based on
it was hard
vocal skill, or is it just based on the fact that you guys grew up? I guess there's a kind of a gospel bond.
There's elements there, but when I say our hearts just was knitted, because understand, she met my brothers before she met me and CeCe.
Okay.
I met her because she was on tour opening for Jeffrey Osborne, and she was singing one of my brother's songs, Tomorrow, in her set. I remember her walking out from the back, and I said to her, I don't know what church you came out of. I don't know your last name. I mean, I don't know your middle name, but I know you come from some church singing the way you sing. And she smiled and said, New Hope Baptist. And so we laughed, and just that moment. And so I can go through the years, but one of the things that always sticks out with her is I run every morning, right? Monday through Saturday. And I run my path in Nashville. I go by this home, and every time I see it, I smile. Sometimes I cry. It's because it was my first home, and I saved the money. And then because of race and various other risks that they see in the color of your skin, they decided you needed 75% to put on the house instead of 50, which was high from the get-go. And so we called just like any other time. Hey, what's going on? Hey, what's wrong? How about the house? They threw a curve, and she's like, what? I was like, don't worry about it. No, tell me. And so I told her what's going on, The next thing I knew, Whitney flew in unannounced. And at that point, me and my wife, we stayed in a one-bedroom apartment. So she decided she's going to spend the night, slept on the couch. And I remember walking out. Now,
And she's Whitney Houston.
She's Whitney Houston. The #1 song is I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Wow. Okay.
She's sleeping on the couch. And I'm trying to sneak out of the door because you open the door, the sun hits the couch. And so I'm sneaking out, the sun hits and she wakes up. Her hair is going every which way. And I start laughing. And I said, boy, if they can see you now, they would want to dance with somebody tonight. She said, shut up. Where you going? I said, Whitney, I just got to go on an errand. I'll be right back. Okay, because we got to go see that house. I was like, girl, shut up. And so I came back. We went to the house, going through this house, because every room, Whitney would say, oh, yeah, now that looks like my brother's bedroom. Oh, that's like my brother's bathroom. Oh, that looks like my brother's a laundry room. It was like, what's wrong with you? And so the last place we stepped on the porch, and she said, oh yeah, this looks like my brother's porch. And then she hands me an envelope. And I say, what is it? And she said,
she opened you.
She said, open it up. I said, what? I open it up, and it is the $50,000 that I needed to buy my home.
Oh, man.
And she said, I told you this was my brother's house. And I was like,
oh, man.
Whitney, I mean, I got to pay. She said, don't you worry about it. Okay, let's go. So when I run by the house, now I paid her back, right? And she called me because I paid it to her accountants. And she said, they just called me and tell me you paid me. And I said, yeah, I told you I was going to pay you. She said, a lot of people say they're going to pay me.
Right.
But every time, and I, I sold the house years ago, but every time I run by that house, I can't help but think of her.
Oh, man.
Help but think of her love, of laughter, of every experience that we had together, which lives inside of me. And she was family, one of the greatest friendships I can even imagine.
So that must be the answer to Ahmir's question of why the book, because were these stories just about to explode inside of you?
Yeah, but the stories of what people didn't know,
That's what I mean. Yeah.
The only thing they talked about was the problem she had with drugs, and this and that, and it's just like that is not her. Let me tell you about the 95% of her that y'all don't know, and so I felt a need, and it was therapy for me. It really was, because that was a hard moment. I got a call that night from her mom. And when she called me, she said, I wanted you to know, and I wanted to check on you because I knew what my daughter meant to you and what you meant to my daughter. And I had to pull over, and like a dam broke inside of me. And I just wept, because not only is the news hard enough, but CeCe, you checking on me, I need to be checking on you. But we were family. We really were family, and she is the best.
Thank you. I want just to in this moment, I'm sorry, Ahmir, I just want to say thank you for the book and continuing to tell these stories everywhere. Like, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask, because there's something I always wanted to know, especially when it comes to celebrations, and you mentioned it earlier. And I watched Whitney's service when it was on CNN. Oftentimes the world will lean on the anointed gospel singers to really come through in one of the most lowest, saddest moments in a person's journey, which is their, it still remains I believe it's a transitioning, not a death. But it's very sad for the people left behind.
Right.
And Whitney's celebration was one of those moments where a lot of joyful noise gospel singing needed to be utilized to help celebrate her. but I know that it has to sting extra hard where you yourself, even if you're in a mournful state for someone that you knew, like it's one thing if you're just called, hey, can you sing at this funeral? You know, this brother passed away and da 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 da. But could you describe to me, because I wanted to know.
It was the most difficult thing you could do.
How did you channel or pull into you to step to the plate and really just
didn't want to do it. Didn't know what, and for me, just to be, I'm just, for me, not even for my sister, not for my brothers, I'm not good at singing I fall apart, which I fell apart at her celebration before I started singing, even before and after, because this person means a lot to me.
Right.
So the only thing, other than God's help, that gave me the strength to do it is that I heard what she would say. So when I got up that morning and I started getting dressed, I started crying. And then I remember standing up, and I could hear her say, "Now don't you mess up." And that's what she would say while we were live, each other. So I used to say to her, because she would call sometimes, say her voice was gone. And I would say, "Oh, I wish I was there, because I know now you're going to really sing, because you got to take different avenues to do what you do." I remember in New York when she sung at Radio City Music Hall for Clive Davis, it was something. And she had this burgundy dress on. She was so hoarse. And I was excited because I knew, oh, she's gonna really give it to y'all, because she has to. So I heard in my head, "Don't you mess up." You better look good and you better get ow. Because that's what she said in life, right? And so that is what I leaned on, and I focused in on those moments, not that moment. I had enough time to focus on that moment when I sat down and could just, weep.
Well, I thank you for your service. I always wanted to ask you that question, like, what is it to reach, to use your gift when you might not necessarily be in the mind state to deliver, but you have to not only deliver for the church, but also the world's watching you.
Yeah, and understand, not only deliver for them, but deliver for me. So before my songs touch anyone else's heart, it touches mine, because it comes from my heart. It comes from my experience. It comes from the down times. It comes from the victories and the defeats. And so I sing what I believe, no matter what that is, whether it's itsy bitsy spider, kind of spouty. It means a different thing to me.
Gotcha. Hey, speaking of crowds and performing every night, can you talk about your experience in playing Harpo in The Color Purple with Shaka Khan?
Yeah, like theater experience, BeBe. Like, remember them lines.
What was that like for you?
Oh, that was a double-edged sword.
Whoosh.
Because I got a call. Golly, I tell you, sometimes I go back and sometimes I don't know how I made it through some things, but I do. So I got a phone call from a guy named Scott that told me he wanted me to come in and write some songs for a new musical that was going to happen called The Color Purple. So I went in to New York and met this and that. And then I remember, as time was going on, I called Oprah and said, "Hey, they're making a musical." And her words was, "That's stupid."
Fast forward.
Not too fast. But as I fast forward and was walking down the street, I picked up a this is when we had newspapers, USA Today. And there was the announcement of Color Purple coming to Broadway, and my name was nowhere on the credits.
Yeah.
And the guy wouldn't call me back. I mean, broke my little heart. But
what?
No, 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 no.
you know what I'm saying? And so, hey, and then next thing I know, Oprah is one of the producers and this and that. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's life.
This is hilarious. What?
That's life. And then I get a phone call. Opening night is about to happen, and Oprah and Gail calls me and says, "You got to be at the opening." I said, "I don't have to do nothing.
Yeah.
Love God and breathe. Y'all know what happened. I'm not coming." And then something in me said, "Go." And I remember going, hoping, you hear me right, hoping that it was a mess.
You ain't gonna tell us who was playing Harpo at the time, are you?
And I was like, it was the whole, I forget who
it was just the cast.
The original. Yeah, it was the original Broadway cast.
This is the original. I'm like, so I'm sitting there saying, that was a good song. Oh, man, that was pretty good.
Don't you hate giving in?
Shout out to Allie Willis.
Don't you hate giving in?
Hey, giving in. Giving in. And so at the end, I remember, so I found Scott and I went up to him and I said, I wanted just to tell you, congratulations, sir. And he looked like he saw a deer in headlights and he was like, oh, thanks, BeBe. I said, much success to you. So bounce back 2 years later or a year or so, I get a phone call saying they want you to come in, and Gail called me, just be out there. They want you to be Harpo, Mr. was position. And I said, girl, please, I ain't got time for that. You don't remember? I do. And so they'll say, do it just for Oprah. Such and stuff. I was like, y'all, you know what? I'm going to come in. And when I got there, they switched it and wanted me to do Harpo. I bumped into Shaka Khan. I was like, Shaka Khan, why are you here? She said, well, they asked me to do Sophia because they were asked. I said, that's not what they asked. So it was this tricks just going on. And, tricks are for kids. Or grown-ups. And,
See, magic.
Oh, there we go. And so we did the thing, and I didn't care if I got the part or not. That evening, I got a phone call from Scott, and he said, we loved you. And before we get another thing out, I said, Scott, why don't we start with you apologizing?
That's right.
What happened 2 years ago?
Okay.
He apologized. And right after he apologized, I said, I'll do the part. But let's not sit up here and act like
I love you, BeBe. I love some truth. Yeah, 2 + 2 did not equal 4.
Come on. So, and I enjoyed it. I said this is probably going to be my last time, because I did Broadway in 1986 on a show called Don't Get God Started. And it's just hard work. And your life,
the lines
is gone. You can't do anything. I remember walking down the street seeing, the Queen is coming to Radio City. I'm gonna go there, and some say, no, you ain't. You're gonna be on stage.
You gotta work.
Oh my God. Yeah. So
that was the last time.
It was one. I don't know if I did anything after that, but it is something I'm excited to be on the other side of. And giving jobs to so many wonderful, talented people that are out there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was great. Thank you.
I have 2 more questions, then we could wrap up. But I do have to know, because pivots are a big part of your story. What was the deciding factor that you go solo after having sung with your sister for so long? Like, how hard was the transition in not being BeBe and CeCe Winans?
Not hard at all. Not hard at all.
You just ripped the Band-Aid. You're a Band-Aid ripper. Okay, you're not sentimental.
I never heard that, Chris. I never heard that before. A Band-Aid ripper.
Rip the Band-Aid. Let's go.
That's what you are.
Let's go. Take that. I'm gonna use that. No, because this was planned in my mind from this first album. So from first album to the end, there's always been a solo on the duet album for CeCe and for me, because I knew we were going to do solos. And so the record company would be angry. And I was like, no. Inside, I knew. And when that day happened, we had something to build. Each of us had something to build upon.
A little catalog of some songs that you had already done solo. Yeah.
And so when that day came, I said, CeCe, ladies first, I'm going to go somewhere and rest my brain. Do other things, because it would have been crazy for us to try to do it at the same time, because we would be fighting for the same audience. So I went away for years. Some people thought I had passed away.
Well, you tried your hand at acting, because you're in the Manchurian Candidate, even though it's a cameo.
Yes, I did that, not trying to. That was, again, when doors open, I've learned to walk through. But Denzel directed my first video. It was his directorial, In Harm's Way.
Really?
Denzel did that. And at the end of the video, Denzel,
you are connected.
Oh, yeah.
And doors, I love introductions.
He's loved. That's what that is. That's love.
So he directed that. And at the end of the thing, he said, I'm going to tell you one thing. I was like, oh, what did I do? What did I do? And he said, you got some acting chops. You should act. And I said, wait. Denzel's telling me I can act. I said, you ain't got to even worry about coming out of this year, because I ain't going to let it in this year. You're Denzel. And he said, I'm just telling you. And 10 years down the road, I'm in Manchurian Candidate, not because of Denzel, but because of the director meeting me at a birthday celebration. And he says, you're going to be in my next movie. And I was like, okay, I guess you're a director. And then here I am, finding out this man's name was Jonathan Demme. Silence of the Lambs. I didn't even know the man's name.
Oh my God.
I knew it was Jonathan. So I'm at this meeting with a friend, and I pick up the Variety magazine, and I was like, this is the name of the movie that these people trying to give me here. And he said, what's the guy's name? I said, Jonathan something. He said, Jonathan Demme, BeBe? I said, yeah, that's that man's name. And so that's how that happened. Having that experience, Jonathan calls me and says, you got to do more movies. It's like, what is wrong with y'all?
So then what's up with that though?
So hey, I just did my first TV series. It premiered June the 2nd, called Mind Your Business, with Columbus Short. I didn't even know who he was until I was
Columbus Short.
Yeah.
From Scandal.
Scandal, yes. And it bounced TV, and it was the most premier.
Oh, Bounce is doing some things
in their history, over 2 million households. So I'm on that. My name is Henry. And that is doing well. And so the fear, let's just say that the fear of stepping into that, part of my world is starting to dissipate. But you said something earlier that is important to me. If I'm not having fun, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So this new song, I'm having fun doing that again, because
Father in Heaven
behind the scenes. So Father in Heaven right now, I went overseas and did 4 concerts in South Africa, and it woke up the sleeping bear. So
did you miss it? Or
I didn't miss it, because I really truly don't. I'm allergic to the word tour.
I get it. What is the worst thing about touring?
Travel and dealing with children. And that's what I call the band and everybody else. They're children. You still have to keep the children in line. You have to, so that's the hard part.
Wait, and when you mean children, are you referring to musicians who overplay?
Yeah, yes. As if they came to see you.
Oh, they still do that to you?
Dude,
they can't help it. It's just music.
I just figured they would be disciplined enough.
No,
yeah.
I am the last Mohican. I'm the
don't
most,
overplay.
I'm
And I'll be
world
wanting him to
famous
play
for
more.
doing nothing. I'm world
That's
famous for doing
hilarious.
nothing.
Because I'll be like, Ahmir, do the thing that you.
Nope, I'm a metronome, and that's how I pay the bills.
Wait, Ahmir, you will be mad if we don't ask this question before we end this interview because listen, 2 weeks ago I was hosting a Q&A at Capitol Jazz Fest and Louis Vega was the man on the stage
I
and
totally forgot.
every New York everybody wanted to talk about BeBe and this relationship that you have with Louis Vega and this collaboration that y'all been doing for years. Can you just I would like you to just tell me about your first meeting with Louis and what the magic that was.
I'm telling you the truth. It's hilarious to me. I forget how we met, but when we met, he asked if he could. He had mixed the song "Thank You," and Luther was like a brother to me, and so I helped him get Luther to come on and do a thing on his CD as well. But Luther did a lot of the background for me and CeCe. I mean, I can name you 5 or 6 songs that Luther.
I'm sorry, Luther who?
Luther Vandross.
Okay, because
I love you answer that question.
Vandross. I mean, searching for love. So searching for love.
Yeah.
Anyone found it? Searching for Luther.
Oh my God, he was the background vocal king.
That's Luther. His arrangement and him and his singers. He's a whole nother. I have to come back.
It's a book. It's another book.
So Louis Vega, we did the song. The song started really generating a lot in the house, and so he calls me. I think this is when Louis and I became friends. He called me and said, "BeBe, can you please come and sing it live at the shelter?" Now I don't know what the shelter was.
Oh boy,
yeah,
I can't wait for this story.
I said, "Louis, yes." So I said yes because I love people. I had no idea what was going on. So
Your king pivot.
So my singers came with me, and when we got to New York, Louis calls and said, "Hey, man, I'm excited. So we'll pick you up like at 4." Now it was
1 a.m.
1 o'clock. Quest. I stumble when I even talk about it now, years ago. So it was like 1 p.m. I said, "You gonna pick us up? Oh, in 3 hours? Okay, we'll be ready." He said, No, BeBe, we'll pick you up at 4 a.m. I said, whoa.
No.
You picking us up at 4 a.m.
What time we go on?
What time am I singing? He said, "Oh, you'll sing between 4:45 and 5. I said, What are you talking about?
What are you
talking about? I would have never said I've never sung at 4:30. What are you talking? People are up.
Quite seriously.
It was like I'm thrown. When we went to that place, first of all, trying to stay up was the hardest thing in my life. So he picks us up. We go to the shelter. I've never seen so many people in my life. And I'm like, are these vampires?
Mm-hmm.
And then we sang the song. I'm telling you, I've seen audiences that is waiting to hear their song.
Yes.
Never saw an audience like this before. They knew every lick, knew every line, they knew every pause, and they were celebrating like I never saw people celebrate like this before. It blew my mind. And so after that, Louis was like, "BeBe, you got to go with me." I said, no. BeBe.
One and done.
BeBe gonna give you. I said, because I love you, I'm gonna give you 3 more. So I remember I did one in Miami, I did one in London, and then so he calls me. I said, "Louis, don't even call me." But when I say I have a love for him and for his talent and Anna and all of them, that's my brother.
Now, those records, and y'all have changed, like y'all are changing house and gospel at the second, and now his other records with the Clark sisters and the your brothers.
Yes.
And now I look at the Rel song, the Joy Joint. I'm like, this is just the baby of like what y'all.
You know what? To me, it's only right, only because historically speaking, I mean, you're from Detroit. And the world doesn't know. Like, I know the world thinks like Motown.
Right.
There's great jazz that comes out of Detroit, but the world really doesn't know that the role that Detroit has played in electronic music. And there's this whole, Chicago versus Detroit thing.
Yeah.
But to me, it makes all the sense in the world that this pairing happened. And the fact that you did it in the second best nightclub in world history. Of course, the Shelter will even say that their modus operandi was sort of that of what Paradise Garage represented in the early 80s. But yeah, the fact that, to me, gospel flavored house music is one of the most spiritual experiences that one could watch. That
it's so spirit. Yes, Ahmir. It's in your body. It do something to your insides.
Well, because you gotta make a joyful noise, and you also have to move. And as African people, we move.
Oh, and that's the thing. So I did the picnic. Louis will call and say, BeBe, it's not for me. It's like, well, who is it for?
Before your no comes.
Yeah, they call him to get me. And I was like, Louis, will you stop calling me? So I did the picnic in Chicago. It was like
the house picnic.
Oh my,
that's important. It's important. It's important.
Oh my stars.
What was that like?
It was unbelievable. I'm serious. When the music start, it's just, it goes through. There's such an appreciation for their music that they have that I don't think any other genre has.
I think that's true. I learned that.
I still maintain that gospel music belongs in the clubs. I'm sorry.
Everywhere. I believe it belongs everywhere. And so as a songwriter, you learn over the years, if you've written something that's mediocre, you've written something. So this song now that's out, the word scared is not the thing, but I'm like, I anticipate where it's going to go. I think it has the legs to go everywhere that the other songs that I've written that's crossed lines will do. And so I'm excited about
it. Makes sense.
About that. Yeah. And so
it makes sense.
So, I'm in a great space, but again, it's not just for me. I grow in these spaces, but I know it's also for some that are coming through this way as well.
That's exemplary. Wait, I guess there's one important question I do have to ask you, and this kind of ties into the whole Proud family thing. Is BeBe your birth name?
Thank you, Ahmir. Thank you.
You are so funny, girl.
Well, because the thing is, we'll do these interviews.
It's my nickname. My given name is Benjamin. My CeCe's given name is Priscilla. And so
we could have Googled that, but this is
it wasn't for Jim Bakker. Again, Jim and Tami Faye Bakker. So no one knew our nickname.
That's how you got your names.
Our nickname, other than the people, in my household, mom and dad and all them, and then people at my church, they called us BeBe and CeCe. But at school it was Benjamin. And so after some of the success, we remember going back to Mumford High for our 10-year school reunion. And we walked in, and the people who only knew us by Benjamin, they looked over and said, "Oh, hey, BeBe." I was like, "BeBe, you don't know me as BeBe? I'm Benjamin."
Yep.
So if you want to stop me in my tracks, you call me Benjamin.
Exactly.
Stop in my
tracks. Or even worse is when fans call you Benjamin, and then you're like, "Oh, right." Like some people will say to me, "Hey, Ahmir," and then my mind's like, "Wait, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade." They're like, "No, man, I'm just a fan." I'm like,
"Go somewhere."
Well, brother BeBe, I want to thank you for this conversation.
I've enjoyed
this is amazing. Thank you for spending it with Laia and myself. And
yes, thank you, Sarita and Aaliyah. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much. And I hope our listeners out there enjoyed this particular episode. I know I did, and on behalf of Sugar Steve and Pontigolo and Unpaid Bill and Lightyear and myself, this Questlove Supreme. And thank you once again, and we'll see you on the next go round.
See you on the next go round.